It was a quiet evening in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. For most, it was just another ordinary day, but for 30-year-old Jennifer Daugherty, this evening would mark the beginning of an unspeakable nightmare. Jennifer had been living a simple life, working at a local group home for individuals with disabilities. She was known for her kindness and had dreams of building a peaceful future. Her family and friends described her as warm, loving, and full of life. Someone who wouldn't hurt a fly. On February 7, 2010, Jennifer left her home to visit a friend,
not knowing that this seemingly ordinary decision would be her last moment of freedom. Jennifer's life had always been grounded in simplicity. She was a woman who found joy in small things, helping others, spending time with her family, and looking forward to her future. Yet on this day, as she stepped out of her home, she unknowingly walked straight into the clutches of a nightmare. As she made her way to visit a friend, the people she would meet were not the friends she thought they were. Instead, they would become the architects of her pain and suffering. The people responsible for what would happen to Jennifer were not strangers. They were a group of individuals who had been part of the local community. Melvin Knight, Angela Marinucci, and their accomplices had been living in the shadows, waiting for the perfect victim. Jennifer, with her vulnerability and kindness, seemed like an easy target. Jennifer was lured into the home of her captors under false pretenses. At first, everything seemed normal. A visit with a friend, a chance to relax. But within the walls of this seemingly innocuous house, the true horror was about to unfold. What followed was a night of unimaginable suffering. Jennifer was locked inside the house where she was brutally attacked, physically and mentally tortured. The individuals responsible took turns abusing her, forcing her to endure pain and degradation for hours. They showed no mercy, no remorse. For them, Jennifer was just another victim in their twisted game. In this quiet neighborhood, where nothing seemed out of the ordinary, Jennifer's world was ripped apart. The kidnapping, the torture, and the eventual murder all took place behind closed doors, hidden from the world. But it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. Little did her captors know, Jennifer's story wasn't over. Her friends would soon discover the horrifying truth and help bring justice to her name. The brutal crime, unforgiving torture. Jennifer Daugherty, after being lured into the home of her captors, was unaware that this would be the beginning of an unimaginable nightmare. The moment she stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind her, and everything she knew about safety, about life, was ripped away. Locked away, Jennifer was at their mercy. The air was thick with fear, and the house felt suffocating. There was no escape, no way to fight back. Her only crime? Being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her captors, led by Melvin Knight, Angela Marinucci, and their twisted accomplices, showed no hesitation. The moment she was inside, they wasted no time. The cruelty began immediately. Jennifer was subjected to a series of brutal, unforgiving acts. What followed was a nightmare, one where the clock seemed to stop, as time itself became an enemy. They didn't just hurt her, they destroyed her, piece by piece. Jennifer was beaten, humiliated, and tortured in ways that defy the human conscience. Every blow was a cruel reminder that she was nothing but a toy for their twisted amusement. With every minute that passed, her strength drained, and the pain became unbearable. But the perpetrators were relentless. Their laughter, their casual cruelty, it filled the house, an eerie soundtrack to the suffering they inflicted. Jennifer fought with everything she had, but against her tormentors, she stood no chance. Her screams were silenced by their violence, her cries for mercy drowned in the cold, merciless air of the house. They didn't just want to hurt her. They wanted to break her spirit, to crush her hope, to erase her, as though she never existed. And then, as if the terror had no end, they did what they'd set out to do from the very beginning. Jennifer's suffering reached its horrific climax. They killed her, not out of necessity, but out of sheer cruelty. With each violent strike, each hateful act, they erased her life. They didn't just take her away, they destroyed everything she had left. The monster that lurked within them had finally shown itself in full. And when they were finished, they discarded her, just like another unwanted object. Jennifer's last breath, her final cry for help, went unheard. In the end, she was nothing more than a broken spirit, her light extinguished by those who should have never had the power to harm her. The torture she endured wasn't just physical, it was an assault on her very humanity. And yet, through it all, they showed no remorse. There was no fear, no guilt, no hesitation, just cold, calculated actions, as if Jennifer was nothing more than a pawn in their sick, twisted game. Even after her death, the perpetrators felt no need to flee, no need to hide the evidence. They continued with their lives, unbothered, unaffected, as if what they had done was no different than a game. Their cold indifference was as terrifying as the crime itself. Jennifer Daugherty's life, stolen in an instant, her death an act of unimaginable cruelty. All of it was met with nothing but cold indifference. And as for her captors, they went on as if nothing had ever happened. The discovery, the truth, uncovered. When Jennifer Daugherty went missing, no one imagined the truth behind her disappearance. What seemed like just another routine case of a missing person would soon unfold into a terrifying revelation. It wasn't until her friends noticed that something was amiss that the chilling truth began to emerge. Jennifer was not the type of person to disappear without a word. A close friend, sensing that something was wrong, immediately alerted the authorities. Upon receiving the tip, the police immediately began their investigation. They combed through Jennifer's last known communications, and though there were traces, nothing concrete pointed to her whereabouts at first. Everything seemed like it had been concealed, hidden behind a veil of lies. But the truth, as it always does, began to come to light. The deeper the investigators dug, the more the horrifying details started to emerge. As the investigation unfolded, it quickly became clear that Melvin Knight, Angela Marinucci, and the others involved were not as innocent as they pretended to be. Their stories, filled with inconsistencies, only added to the mounting suspicion. The investigators had to peel back layers of deception, and the more they uncovered, the clearer it became that these individuals were not just casual participants. They were the masterminds of the horrifying acts against Jennifer. The deeper the investigation went, the more the truth began to take shape. Jennifer's phone records revealed messages, calls, and activities that linked the perpetrators to her abduction. As the pieces slowly fell into place, one fact became undeniable. These were not mere kidnappers, they were ruthless criminals, each act of violence more calculated than the last. What the investigators soon uncovered was far more than just a simple kidnapping. This was a case of extreme cruelty, a violation of Jennifer's humanity that went beyond what words could describe. Her abduction and subsequent murder were part of a twisted plan orchestrated by her captors. These weren't just crimes of opportunity, they were crimes of calculated cruelty. Jennifer's suffering was not just physical, it was psychological. The torment she endured at the hands of her captors was unrelenting, and they took their time, enjoying every moment of her pain. The brutality of their actions defied understanding. In the aftermath of Jennifer's death, her captors were finally brought to trial. The evidence, overwhelming and chilling, painted a clear picture of the horrific events that led to her untimely death. Throughout the trial, Melvin P. and the others tried to downplay their involvement, but the evidence was irrefutable. Their testimonies were inconsistent, and the prosecution presented a damning case. The brutality of the crime, combined with the overwhelming evidence, led to a clear verdict. Melvin Knight, Angela Marinucci, and the others were convicted of murder, abduction, and abuse. They were sentenced to life in prison, but for Jennifer's family, justice could never truly erase the pain. The trial. Justice served, but the pain remains. When the truth was finally uncovered, justice had to be served. After the shocking events that took Jennifer's life, the case went to trial. The courtroom was filled with tension as Jennifer's family and the community awaited the conclusion of the legal proceedings. The trial began with testimonies from witnesses, investigators, and evidence that left no room for doubt. The cold brutality of the crime was laid bare. But would justice truly be achieved when the perpetrators faced the judge? There were no reasonable explanations for what they had done. Melvin Knight, Angela Marinucci, and their accomplices sat silently, their eyes devoid of emotion, unable to show even a hint of remorse for the tragedy they had caused. Despite the overwhelming evidence, these individuals showed no sign of regret. Their lack of empathy was chilling, a cold indifference to the pain they had inflicted on Jennifer and her family. For Jennifer's family, the pain of losing her was a wound that could never heal. They had watched her grow, loved her, and now, in the courtroom, they were forced to relive the horror of her death through the testimonies and evidence. But no verdict could undo the damage done to them. The pain they felt was not only about Jennifer's life being stolen, but also about how it was taken from her in the most horrific way possible. No justice, no matter how severe, could bring her back. Jennifer's family had to endure the unimaginable loss, a hole in their hearts that would never truly be filled. The trial, though bringing some sense of closure, couldn't take away the ache of their grief. Jennifer's tragic death wasn't just a personal loss. It raised uncomfortable truths about the vulnerabilities of individuals with disabilities and how easily they can be exploited. The perpetrators saw Jennifer's vulnerability and took advantage of it. This case exposed the gaps in society's protections for those who are most at risk. It forced everyone to confront the reality that people with disabilities are often neglected or ignored, making them easy prey for predators. Jennifer's death made the world realize that there are dark corners in society where cruelty can flourish undetected. The case also called attention to the urgent need for stronger safeguards for those who are vulnerable. Jennifer's death was not only the tragic loss of a life, but also a catalyst for change in the way society addresses violence and abuse against those who cannot always defend themselves. Jennifer Daugherty's case was not just about a legal verdict. It sparked a movement. The outpouring of grief and anger from her family, friends, and the community pushed for change. It was a wake-up call for the need to protect those most at risk and to ensure that tragedies like Jennifer's would not be ignored. Justice had been served in the courtroom, but the work didn't stop there. Her death became a symbol of the ongoing fight to protect vulnerable individuals, to prevent such a heinous crime from happening again. While Jennifer could never come back, her story sparked a conversation that brought about necessary societal change. Legacy of the crime, a haunting reminder of vulnerability. The murder of Jennifer Daugherty may have been a single tragic event, but its legacy has rippled through the years, leaving an indelible mark on the community and society. Jennifer was not just a victim of a brutal crime. She became the face of vulnerability, a symbol of how society often overlooks those who are most at risk. Her life, full of hope and promise, was taken away by a group of individuals who saw her not as a person, but as prey. But Jennifer's story was not just about the tragedy she faced. It was about the awareness her death brought to light, the need for protection, for a stronger focus on the safety and well-being of those who cannot always defend themselves. In the wake of Jennifer's death, the community didn't just mourn, they rallied together for change. People from all walks of life stood united, determined that no other vulnerable individual should have to suffer in silence. The case ignited a conversation about how society treats those with disabilities, how easily they can be exploited and abused, and how systems need to be put in place to protect them. Jennifer's story forced the world to take a hard look at how inequities in the system allowed her to fall through the cracks. It wasn't just about holding the perpetrators accountable. It was about creating an environment where those who are most vulnerable can feel safe. As the horror of Jennifer's death sunk in, calls for legislative change grew louder. Lawmakers began to introduce reforms aimed at improving protections for vulnerable individuals. Efforts to strengthen child protection laws, disability rights, and anti-abuse measures were put forward. The story of Jennifer Daugherty is not just a story of loss, but one of resilience. Her life and death serve as a beacon reminding us all of the importance of community, compassion, and justice. As we remember Jennifer, we are reminded that every life matters, and that no one should ever be left to suffer in silence.